Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Somewhere between science and superstition.
We have such sights to show you.
Strange Eons. Welcome to Strange Eons Radio. That's Eric over there.
Everything all right over there?
Everything's fine. Does something smell? What's going on?
No.
You guys are both looking so weird.
We were doing a sniff test.
A sniff test of what?
So you don't do that on the air. You know, as soon as you start up, you go.
What are you talking about?
That's Vanessa over there.
Hi, I'm just confused right now. Sorry, guys.
That's my sink over there, you guys. But
Oh, was it back?
Ooh.
I bought some fancy schmancy sink plugs,
Ooh.
and I jammed them in there. We'll see how well it works because I came home the other day after I had jammed them in there, and one of them was like lying in the middle of the sink. So whatever pressure had built up had popped it out.
Oh my god.
That should be interesting.
The
Cork.
creature reached its little finger up and went.
Right. I'm Kelly. This is a little throwback to what we talked about last episode. We were talking a little bit about Walking Dead and Vanessa and how you had, I think, read most of it.
Almost all of it, yeah.
Eric, I just finished my reread of Invincible, which is also written by Robert Kurtz.
So good.
Sure.
And you have not read this
I
yet,
have
you,
not.
Vanessa?
Mm-mm.
It's 147 issues, I
Something
believe,
like that,
long. And I've been reading it just nightly before I go to bed, so it's taken me about 4 months. I had forgotten a lot of it.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten how that last issue ended up with a kind of a 500-year span in one issue, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. But the thing that was so frustrating about it was everything that they kind of briefly touched on was stuff that I wanted to read an entire comic book about, and I was, God damn it.
Yeah.
Why did we end this series? It's so good. It's so bloody. It's so off the wall. There's some weird shit going on. It is maybe the best superhero book ever written.
Wow.
It's a great one.
Yeah.
It is great. The only weirdness I have with it is, for me, the artist and the writer are so tied together. There's like a 5 to 10 issue span where they have a different artist. Maybe not that long even.
Well, they have. So the original artist was, I believe, Cory Walker,
Sounds right, yeah.
and then he was on for 8 issues at the beginning, and then the majority of the
Right,
other 100
right.
something were this other artist. That other artist that pops in is Cory Walker.
That is
again.
him, okay.
Yeah, so it's really only 2 artists through 147 issues.
Which is impressive.
Yeah.
That's super nice. I mean, that's why I pieced out on Wicked Things. No, Wicked in the Good. Wicked in the Good. I don't remember what it's called now.
Is that a comic book?
It is a comic book series, yeah, and it's now probably on like 8 or 9 volumes. But the third one just completely changed artists, and it has like a bunch of different artists per issue, and it's just so, it's like nails on chalkboard for me when they switch out the artists, even if it's a bad artist, as long as they're consistent, you know, I can stay in that world. But I feel like, you know, if they switch it up, it's really tough.
Yeah, it is.
It's a bit
very
of a pet
bizarre.
peeve.
Well, it's a visual medium, and
Yeah.
so if you get used to somebody in there, it's kind of like when they switch an artist, you're like, what happened to my magazine?
It's
Yeah.
funny because this is the exact reason why I didn't read Robert, one of his 2 newer ones, Die, because I hate that artist like that he chose.
sure.
I hate him. So when I saw the issue start showing up, and I was talking to this comic book guy, and he's like, yeah, like this, check this new thing out. And I was like, oh no. I was like, I'll buy the first 3 and not anything else. Thank you. Have a lovely day.
I might check that out. I sure do like Kirkman's writing, even though I gave up on Walking Dead early.
I mean, that's probably the best part about Walking Dead, I think, is like the story. Like the characters are fun, but like the fact that, I don't know.
Well, what he did right was with Invincible, he's like, I've reached my end of this story. And he wrapped it up. I think Walking Dead was so successful that he
was forced to keep
pushed
going.
a little far further. And it
Yeah.
like I said, I stopped reading before it finished just because it got a little tedious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very repetitive.
Very repetitive.
I was just figured out, Hoopla. You can also borrow comic books, digital comic books. I read Edgar Allan Poe adaptation illustrated by, I just blanked on his name. He's one of the most famous artists for heavy metal. Always draws, well, to be blunt, large naked women.
Not Mobius.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, not Mobius. Sorry,
okay.
not Mobius. But he's a very right. You know him. If I could pull it up, you'd go, oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about. Because he's probably in every other issue of heavy metal, it seemed, at least for a while.
Wow. Okay.
And that's pretty good. Interesting adaptations. Really short, though. Like 4 or 5 page adaptation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Comics are so fun. I think it was, by the way, I think it was Wicked and the Divine, I think.
Wicked and the Divine. Never heard of it.
Yeah. Bunch of gods take human form for a short period of time, and they are allowed to be alive for like 2 or 3 years, and they get to be like rock stars. Like one's basically David Bowie, and then one's like Kanye West, big celebrities, and then they die.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Richard Corbin.
Oh, Corbin. Yeah. Den.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because like it's October, things are getting creepy. I'm starting to really dip my toes into different horror films. However, I did also begin to revisit Stranger Things.
Oh,
Really?
So I'm on my like 3rd watch through of that. I have a friend who has not seen any of it. So we're checking it out, going back through it. And also because I think I told you guys I'd started playing this really silly video game where you can play different horror characters.
right.
And you can play either Nancy or Steve from Stranger Things. And Nancy's
Really?
yeah. And like, which is weird because it's like you don't play any of the kids. And I think the idea is they don't want to put kids in danger because like you do have to, like people get hooked, like, and there's blood everywhere. So I can see why they chose not to go with like 11. But Nancy, I don't like her at all in the show. I've come to realize. However, she's one of the strongest characters you can play in Dead by Daylight. So I had to revisit it.
Speaking of
Nice.
being Halloweeny and all that, you brought us some orange flavored Kit Kats.
I did.
And those are delightful.
You liked them?
Yeah, holy cow. I never bring those here again.
You got it.
That's a bad thing to...
Yeah, no. So it was funny. I was at World Market and they had a bunch of different like Halloweeny stuff, and they did have these like orange flavored Kit Kats, and I was like, man, like, yeah, from Japan, sounds cool. And then when I got home, I was like, oh wait, they're from England. I lived there for 10 years, and I was like, I wonder if they're gonna taste like the English Kit Kats, which they do chocolate very, very differently in England than how we do it here. And oh my God, instantly was brought back
Nice.
to another time. I was just like, oh my God, I forgot how good English chocolate is.
Yeah.
These are delicious.
I tend to, I'm not a big fan of orange and chocolate.
Sure.
Largely because it becomes sort of like a chocolate orange as opposed to chocolate with just a touch of an orange flavor. Those are much better.
Oh, I'm
it
so
does
glad.
that. It's got a little bit more of a, as opposed to like that orange you buy in the store.
The
that you like-
Terry's.
That's chocolate. It's like, I'll just have an orange, thanks.
Yeah, this one, it's funny because I was like, oh, wait, in my brain, I was like, it's going to have orange layers in it or orange fruit flavor or something. But the chocolate being merged really well with the orange is very nice. So, yeah, I'm glad I was able to do something for you guys because you guys are always like bringing cool, interesting things to try out.
Yeah, I got no food stuff, sure, comic. Although I did also dive into the one which, yeah, it's fucking amazing, is Utopia.
Oh,
About 3 episodes deep, I think, at this point.
okay.
Damn.
You like it?
Yes.
I finished it, and I thought it finished very interesting,
Oh, cool.
and I was satisfied with this show. This is a show that I don't feel like many people are talking about for some.
No, I mean, you are the only person who's mentioned it to me. And so is it a miniseries then, if it finished, or is it just the season finished?
Season finale. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
8 episodes, I think.
I think it is only 8 episodes. Yeah.
But, of course it's going to appeal. You knew it appealed to me as soon as you watched it because it's sort of about a lost comic book, finding a comic book that's predicting future events. And like, of course. It goes way beyond that, though, quite quickly.
Yeah,
But,
it goes into all sorts of conspiracy theories, and like the best of those kind of things, they all turn out to be true.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like the scene I loved with, I think it's in the third episode. It's the two of the comic book nerds sitting there figuring out. The one guy's like, last year we were just talking about this stuff. Now we're in the middle of it. It's kind of cool, isn't it? Like, yeah, I won't say why it wasn't necessarily that cool, but yeah, okay.
Well, the topic today led me down all sorts of roads, and it led me to a movie that I had never seen before, and it's not something that I could have used, but it got me interested in it. Have you guys seen Where Eagles Dare?
No.
Richard Burton and Clint Eastwood?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. My dad was a huge Clint Eastwood guy, so I watched a lot of his stuff.
I had never seen this. What a delightful World War II film. It's basically a heist movie in the middle of, well, it's not even the middle of World War II. It's when the war is winding down, and it's really just kind of a Richard Burton, Clint Eastwood buddy movie as they're trying to rescue this particular guy from the Germans, and then just all the shit that goes wrong and everything. You forget how handsome Clint Eastwood was when he was 26 or whatever. I mean, man, good looking, steely gaze, the way he talked, all this stuff. I was just like in love. So, really fun movie. Available on Prime.
Very cool. Yeah. Similarly, this particular topic led me through a couple of rabbit holes as well. And I actually I was hoping that I would be able to do House for this topic today, but I wasn't able to because I ordered them from Arrow and they have not yet turned up. However, it was really fascinating because if you want House 3 or 4, if the Arrow has the rights to do that in the UK, so you can get like a box set, like a really cool looking complete box set from them, but they don't have the 2 last films rights in the US, but I think Shout Factory has one of them. I think they have House 3. So it's just a big mess. But yeah, so I'm excited to rewatch those and give them another spin.
I'm a little nervous to get a region-free Blu-ray player just because that just opens it up to so many more things I might want to spend money on.
I was so worried you were going to say, because it might not work. And I was like, let me tell you, as somebody who's half of my DVD collection is British, but yeah, it does. Being able to play pretty much anything, it rocks your universe.
Yeah, I'm sure I will end up with one at some point. There's going to be something that comes out.
Yeah, like that Hammer box set alone is so worth it.
Very true. Yeah, me as well. I watched a couple that I was like, "Ooh, nope, definitely not." Some forgot what country it was from, but some called the Squad from 2011.
Oh my god, I watched a trailer for that.
The trailer is pretty good. I actually got so bored with it, I stopped about 30 or 40 minutes in, going, the idea is interesting, and this would have been an excellent 20-30 minute short.
Yes.
But they stretch out we're going through shit so long. And a couple of the choices are made that have to happen to move the plot forward are so stupid. It's like, but my brother might be up there. Yeah, you're still a soldier in war. You're not going to just run up the hill and start shooting randomly. It's like, no, that's not how you save your brother if he was there. So I was like, okay, and I don't need movies to be perfectly logical, but at points it's just like, no, I'm sorry. It's just too far.
They've kind of failed if that's what's happening is you keep pulling yourself out of the movie going, come on now,
Yeah.
So it's really easy to go along with bad mistakes if they're written well.
Or like people lose their shit. Oh, he just pulls up in New York and automatically has a parking space. Like, I don't want a 4-hour movie where 2.5 hours of it is him looking for a parking space. So yeah, I'm okay with that.
No one ever goes to the bathroom. Do you want to see people go to the bathroom? Just curious.
Well, and then the last thing I want to talk about, I don't know, this is kind of a deep subject. Are you guys watching The Vow on HBO?
No.
It is a ongoing documentary series right now. that is all about the Nexium cult. That,
Oof.
I was
Yeah.
reading about
Oof.
that. That
That's-
looks really good.
That's the sex cult with the Smallville
with
girl.
the actors and everything like that, and it is fascinating. And it's just part of it is just kind of a head scratcher that you're going, well, these are all very intelligent people who got sucked into this and then just got out of their control. It's really, really interesting, very well done, and creepy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's creepy because this guy who kind of got it all going, I think he started out with really good intentions, and then the power corrupted him, and he just became kind of he started believing his own hype, I guess.
Yeah. Not unusual for cult leaders.
Yeah.
Oof.
So, interesting stuff, and also because this wasn't a Ruby Ridge situation where they're out in the middle of nowhere. This was a bunch of wealthy people in Vancouver, and they had Nexium headquarters all over the world.
Really?
So yeah, they've got the Vancouver one, New York, San Francisco. So it's almost like an indicator of how something like Scientology could take off and become such a huge thing.
Wow.
So I'd just say, if you're interested at all in kind of the background of that, and it's very, very candid. They're talking to all the people involved. So really, really interesting.
It sounds really fascinating. I mean, I always find it really interesting when people, who have never experienced anything along those lines look at cults and go, well, how could you be so dumb?
Right.
And it's like, well, these things often don't start as crazy cults. They weave themselves from one interesting thing, like a charity or like a small group of people who just want to hang out and farm, into something very different.
Yeah.
Right. And this took place over years. So it's not like somebody said, hey, would you like to join this cult?
Right. Would you like this refreshing cup of Kool-Aid? Just mixed it up.
Well, there's hopefully, we won't get doxxed or something for me mentioning QAnon.
Oh my God.
A podcast I listen to.
We're going to get so many more listeners.
Oh, all right. But there's a podcast I listen to that's kind of investigating QAnon group. And they had a fascinating episode comparing QAnon to the Satanic Panic in the 80s.
Yeah.
And the similarities are shockingly.
Now that you say that, that's so crazy.
Yeah. It's right on brand.
Yeah.
So it's not an unusual occurrence, and it happens all the time.
I do wonder what's going to happen to the QAnon and to and politics aside, but the people who do really enjoy Trump and think that the virus is a hoax since he's got the virus. I'm like, what is this going to do to their faith pattern?
It's been fun to read.
I can't imagine. Like, how are they going to justify that in their own heads? Well, he really has this really big plan, or they poisoned him, the Democrats. Like, I'm curious to see how they're going to spin this to make it still okay.
You hit a couple of I've already read.
So I didn't ever get the feeling when he said it was a hoax that he was talking about the virus itself. I thought
it's
he was
one of the
talking about
things.
It's one of the
how dangerous the virus was.
I don't know.
That's one of the things. But the QAnon it's fascinating to listen to, especially listen to this pod where they break it down, where they take, when he said this in his tweet, the QAnon people say, well, this words mean this and this means this.
I saw some of this stuff.
So so they're interpreting.
He's talking in code.
Yeah. So he may not be saying it's a hoax, but he's telling the QAnon folks it is a hoax.
Like, that's what they're getting.
Because that's their interpretation of it.
And then I saw something that, like, Tom Hanks, in some message he set out, he was sending out code words that, was, this is where you come and get your satanic babies.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Part of what they said works so well with QAnon versus what has happened in the past is it can be so fluid now. You can change message so fast with Twitter and things that somebody says, well, this is absolutely false right here. And they could just go jump right over it and move on, altering whatever that signal is. It's wild.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard on a different radio special that QAnon started almost as like a new age thing. Like there were a lot of like yoga people who
It
were
didn't
like
necessarily
checking it
start
out.
that way,
Oh, okay.
but it has been developed. It has been accepted into those groups by some yoga groups and stuff quite thoroughly.
I mean, I know I realize I literally just said that, you should ease up on people who join cults, but I cannot fathom how you, I mean, you're not in a room talking to a specific person. You're like on the internet, like just reading stuff, like how you could be convinced that something you read on the internet is
Being
real.
an anti-vaxxer to being a denier of COVID is a really short trip
You're right.
between
Okay.
those two areas.
Yeah.
Because they both believe about a different thing, but they both believe this similar things. They both believe that this is bad and it's being used to give you evil shit. Well, I could say that about either one.
Right.
Man.
It's interesting.
I think the thing with conspiracy theories to me, and I've probably already said on the show, is I feel like the real ones, or the ones that have the most credibility, are ones where someone gets a financial gain and you can see the idea of that very clearly.
Yeah.
So when people have said different theories about things like 9/11 or whatever, to me, I'm like, yeah, but the risk versus reward, think about it. Just think about it. How many people would have to be quiet for you to get this teeny tiny drop in the bucket thing that might kind of be valuable to like 3 people versus your life in prison?
I started to heavily dip my brain into conspiracy stuff when I was in my 20s. And I came across a quote, something to the effect of, in order to the moon landing to have been faked, I believe it was like 40,000 people would have had to keep their mouths shut.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? That can be applied to so many conspiracies, to where A has to keep B quiet and B has to keep C quiet, not all the way down the line. If they're going, okay, I can see that.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I think in the recent Apollo documentary, they say that they say the number of people that were involved in that. And it is stunning. I mean, I think of like, if I told 3 people something that I wouldn't want to get leaked, most likely I would see somebody tweeting about it, like it's just, it's impossible.
You know what I heard?
Right. Like, wait a minute. Yeah. So like, I don't know. I always think, you have to see a very clear value for somebody that's worth it. So, but whatever.
Well, that's been another episode of Conspiracies Are Us. Shall we take a little break, guys? And
Absolutely.
Come back with our topic, which is war story.
G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe, fighting man from head to toe, on the land, on the sea, in the air.
G.I. Joe attack! Boom, boom! G.I. Joe takes the hill! Bam, bam! Horrific battle!
Terrific equipment to have a battle with. When you get G.I. Joe and the authentic G.I. Joe equipment, you'll have the greatest realism, the greatest fun you ever had in playing soldier. Box after box of authentic uniforms and equipment, so you can change your G.I. Joe soldier into a camouflage Marine ready for battle, a Navy frogman with complete scuba suit and inflatable life raft, an Air Force pilot with high-altitude helmet and air vest. Get G.I. Joe and get G.I. Joe equipment so you can set up exciting battle action whenever you want. Remember, only G.I. Joe is G.I. Joe.
And we're back. Eric, this was your genre.
Yes, it was. Damn it. I screwed myself on this one. Like I said just a minute ago, I watched like The Squad, which ended going no. And then I watched something called Death Ship.
Yeah.
That looked interesting. No?
No, unfortunately, it sits in that horrible zone between a good horror film and a so bad it's good horror film, where it's just a
bad,
dull, nothing goes on.
That's the problem with it. It's dull.
And I realized about 10 minutes into it, going, oh, I've already seen this too. So that was an easy dismissal.
Oh.
But so I went in and went for the feel-good movie of no year. From 1984, a film called Combat Shock.
I can't tell how long I've been here. Days or years. I mean, what happened? This isn't supposed to happen here.
There's no more food. He's hungry. You're not looking for a job. You're waiting for the world to end.
Hey, that should be any day now.
Are either familiar with this?
No, I'm not
No.
familiar with this at all.
Yeah, and I went deep dive looking.
If I said who distributed it, you would have the total wrong impression of this film. It's distributed by Troma. It is not a Troma film.
Okay.
Well, I'm surprised they didn't put it under their other label. You know, they had that foreign language and art house label they do as well.
Yeah.
It should have been under that.
Well, this was 84, so this would have been about the time they were putting out Toxic Avenger. and
Yeah,
everything?
Class of Nukem High. I think
And it's
is
not
around
like
then.
those kind of
Oh,
movies.
God, no.
Oh, interesting.
Not even close. The Rotten Tomatoes is 40 from critics, which I find surprisingly low, actually, and 65 from crowd, which might be a little high, but
Okay.
somewhere in between those. The estimated budget, because it's unknown, because this is a low-budget production, was about maybe $40,000. It was directed by a guy named Buddy Giovanzo, also creator of Life is Hot in Cracktown.
Sure.
He actually moved to Germany a couple years out of making this, so he's actually done a lot of German TV. Written as well, but he credited himself as Buddy G. Like, oh, sure, why not? Starring his brother, Rick. Only acting credit he's got, but he has 193 music department credits, including some small films like Goosebumps, Transformers, and Solo. So he went on to have a pretty good career. The Veronica Stork, who was in the Class of Nukem High 3, and Mitch Maglio, and the only actor to really go on to do much is Eddie Pepitone, who's in Bob's Burger. He's in Community. This was his first film. Didn't act again until 1998, and now has 130 some odd credits.
Way to
lost
go.
Yeah, no kidding.
Damn, son.
So, this is a disturbing, dirty, dark film. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, this movie's gritty. This movie's fucking gritty. It starts off, the idea is I wasn't even sure if it's quite horror. Then I looked on IMDb and it's classified as drama, horror, thriller. I'm like, okay, we'll go. But it starts off with a fairly disturbing scene. Now, this is the 80s, so there's a whole shit ton of Vietnam sucks and was horrible movies coming out at this time.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so it starts off with a flashback of him being in Vietnam, where he has to kill a villager, and he didn't want to do that, and he throws his gun away and runs back to the village where his team and all the villagers have been slaughtered. So he doesn't know what happened. And this is the lovely setup for the future forward. The violence is done well enough. You know, the obvious, you know, all the shots go to the main part of the body. There's no headshots at any point or anything, you know, that low budget thing.
Yeah.
There's even one part where he shoots somebody and you can see the sparks fly from the the charge going off. He wakes up from this was a dream or flashback dream he was having. And he wakes up in the nightmare of poverty with a kid and a wife. And anybody here seen Gummo? Have you seen that one?
No.
Okay. Like I say, this is kind of a cross between Gummo, Taxi Driver, and maybe a little bit of Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Damn. That sounds rough.
Oh, it's a depressing film. So he's out of food, and his wife's yelling at him for being out of food, and his kid's crying. Kids cry is creepy and weird sounding. It is really strange. They show a shot of this kid, and I'd say he's 30% nicer looking than the baby in Eraserhead.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a disturbing looking baby, which I think is part of what leads to the horror elements, because he's so far afield, as opposed to they reference the child as being birth defects because of Agent Orange. I think this is way past that. This is just a very disturbing looking kid. So he goes out searching for a job or anything he can find, and they do a nice job of sort of painting this guy as being an honorable person. Like he's also a recovering heroin addict, so they have a flashback of him in the recovery unit of that, and he runs into a friend of his who's still on heroin, and he tries to talk him, working. You don't want to do this stuff kind of scene. A little heavy-handed, but a nice element to this guy as being a character, because he is uncomfortably sleazy looking.
Oh, no.
He's got long hair that looks like hasn't been washed. It's like, dude, you got an apartment. You have a shower. You can do some kind of cleaning. So he tries to talk him into doing a crime, and the guy's like, we're not going to do any crimes with you. But we then find out that he's had some money out to a loan shark, and the loan shark guys, tough guys, start to harass him a little bit. There's one huge problem with these tough guys. Two look just fine. One of them looked like he just got done with the bad music video for Michael Jackson.
Oh, no.
He has an Asian-themed headband on. He's got black studded leather vest and gloves. And I was like, yeah, sorry, dude, you don't look tough. But I'm absolutely sure that he told these actors, bring what you got to wear. What would you look like to look tough?
Right.
That's what this guy showed up in. They're like, oh... They do another flashback to Vietnam a little bit when he's talking to people that's not quite as harrowing as the first one, but it's not fun. The soundtrack is interesting because it's a split of some pretty solid music, actually. This was another Severin one I picked up where the guy told me, this is one you want to check out. He was right that it's a quality film. It's not a fun watch, but it does come with a CD soundtrack, which is a lot of times fairly good, but sometimes, wow, just bad. It's really strange how it goes up and down. The heroin friend he has, unfortunately, is not developed real well. I wish they would have spent either a little more time developing the friendship or something, because they spend not a lot, but enough time with that guy that I wish I knew a little bit more about him. But he's more of a plot device than he is a character. Mm. He goes to get job help for people finding jobs and stuff, and he has to wait in line for that. They make him wait in line, and I think he went to a local Judas Priest concert and said, hey, all you Judas Priest fans, all the guys, Judas Priest fans, can you come and stand in this line over here for me? Because they're all denim, long hair. It's like, there had to be a concert in the area or something, because you just picked those extras out of the crowd. But he goes in there, and the social worker has a Dawn of the Dead poster and a Frank Zappa sitting on the toilet poster in his office. I'm going, what? This seems inappropriate for an office setting. Maybe Dawn of the Dead, but the toilet on the back of the door is a little weird. He gets kind of beat up, and this is the budget shows in the fight scenes and stuff quite a bit, because they're not, low budget fight scenes.
Sure.
I'm afraid to hit somebody. They push the taxi driver a little bit because he's out wandering around still, and comes across the scene before it is a prostitute headed off with a John and leaving her two little kids there. But the little kids are dressed a lot like their mother. So he comes up and starts talking to one of the girls, and she kind of propositions him. He's like, no, no. So it's a little touch of the taxi driver there. Mm-hmm. The ending of the film is even grimmer and darker than everything leading up to it. And it's not, I guess I'm not going to say it's not a spoiler ending, because the cover of the box is a picture of him with a gun to his head.
No.
Like, that doesn't happen until the end. So I'm going, okay, the effects for that actually were done really uncomfortably well. Like, oh, God. why this feels so gritty and real is the lead character in the end is he's likable enough that you can follow his story and not fully disconnect yourself from the shit that he's going through. The art direction is so grim. It's like, it almost looks like they took really, really dirty wallpaper and wallpapered over whatever apartment they're shooting in, because I'm like, that is so uncomfortably gross looking.
Oh, jeez.
If you're really interested in this film, I'm sorry. Take just a moment, hit a skip forward, because I'm going to say something real grim about the ending here too. So he doesn't just shoot himself. He kills his wife and the baby.
Oh my God.
And the moment he kills this weird baby creature is so uncomfortable, because the baby, he shoots it and then the baby rolls back over and like has blood coming out of its mouth going, this is so much more effective than it has any right to be.
Oh my God. Ugh.
So yeah, high praise. Y'all run out right out and get this one. So he did, he borrowed equipment from his job teaching at a film school to make the movie. Sounds familiar. The puppet for the deformed mutant cost about $140 to make. Any wardrobe that was purchased by the Salvation Army, which, by the way, is a perfectly great, all you low-budget filmmakers, find your local Value Villages or whatever you've got.
Oh, yeah.
He actually didn't want to cast his brother in it. He was trying to avoid doing it. They kept trying to cast, they couldn't, and his brother said, let me try. And he's like, oh, okay, you're perfect. They did not pay for a single permit for anything. This is all full guerrilla filmmaking in New York. So that's a tough thing to get away with, especially they shot a lot on the streets. It was originally called American Nightmares. He convinced a local screening place called the Gore Gazette that would do weekly screenings of horror films to show it. And he got a very skewed reaction because this was the perfect audience to show it to. And he said they weren't liking it too much for about half. And then when things kicked up, they loved it and it went really well. And he's like, oh man, I got a huge hit on my hands. And he realized that, no, he didn't. This is not a film for very many people. But he did the unthinkable. He did the impossible. He made a deal with Troma that made him money.
Whoa.
In two ways. He made a little money in the end. He said, I'll let you sign this if you pay off my debt for developing the film. So he got them to pay to get the film and then got money out of it from him. Like going, whatever you do for a job, sir, you should be like an agent or something or a producer, because damn. Nobody gets that.
Or Lloyd was sleeping that day.
Yeah. There you go. The R rating they kept submitting. They ended up having to cut out 8 minutes of it to get the R rating, which I'm not surprised. Kind of faded off, and then the magazine Deep Red did a cover article about it, and it swept back up and got a strong underlying cult following. When he moved to Germany, he also did a film called No Way Home with Tim Roth. I was watching some of the extras on there and interviewing a film journalist who pushed the film really hard. And I kind of agree with his assessment in that he does not understand how this guy hasn't gone on to do more movies. Because all the stuff he had against him and all the problems this movie has, it is a super low budget, incredibly well-made film. He really should have done more. It's hard to get past what's in that first movie. And, a lot of people can't look at a director and go, well, like Nicolas Cage did on the one we talked about last week, where he looked at Begotten and go, you can do a regular huge budget film. But so, yeah, if you're in the mood for those films that make you go, shower time when you're done watching, I fully recommend Combat Shock. I'm pretty sure it's out streaming on various places because it is still, because Severin had it and Troma. It's not hard to find film.
The horror elements then are the him killing his family, obviously, but that kind of stuff. There's no supernatural or anything.
No, there's nothing supernatural. It's more akin to the horror like you'd get from Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Sure.
That's why I mentioned that one, because it's not really like that film, but that both of these movies fall into the horror world kind of by default, hard to watch.
Right.
And somebody who watches Disney movies on the regular is going to be really disturbed by this film.
So the version that you saw with actually showing the baby getting shot, is that like a extended unrated version, or is that the R version?
No, this is a Severin production, so it's the full original.
Okay, got it. Cool. I was like, that's amazing for an R to show even.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
But Severin being Severin, it looks as good as I think this film could possibly ever look.
I am going to rush right out and avoid this at all costs.
That's right.
Same. I was like, this is not the climate in the world right now for me to be at all interested in that. So that being said, man, you know what? This is a tough week because war films are not like cheery. I'm gonna be the one to break the news on that. So I was looking for a good, different, maybe hidden supernatural war movie of some kind. And I kept watching all these trailers being like, man, that one sucks. That one sucks. That one looks really bad. That one kind of looks good, but actually I'm sure it's bad. So I landed on 2008's The Objective.
My orders are to make contact with a cleric. This is our man.
Pretty quiet from here.
Those are the ones I worry about most. Man, we couldn't have picked the worst possible way through here. Where are the bodies? Look at that!
Compass is telling me that that's north. I don't see how that's possible.
We should not have come here.
That's not funny, man. I filled this thing up with water last night.
You guys hear that?
What's wrong? You see anything? What the hell's going on? Jesus Christ! What we need to do is extract.
Canceling this mission is not an option.
I don't know if I know this one.
I have seen the cover art for this, but not
Sure.
the film.
Yeah. I will tell you guys, boy howdy, did I pick ill?
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
You know Indiana Jones with the gauntlet and the...
You chose
Poorly.
I chose freaking poorly. But I feel like it's important to talk about this movie for a number of reasons. One of which is just a gentle PSA to anyone who might be trapped into thinking that they might want to check this out. And also, you know, like Rotten Tomatoes, it got a 33% from critics and a 32% from audience. Way too high.
Oh boy.
Way too high. The budget I could not find at all. The box office looks like it made about $95.
All right.
It was ranked number 93 in the opening weekend that it was released.
There you go.
Top 100. Way to go,
There
guys.
you go. That's right.
And I will say it's really hard to find much information about this film. I think because of the filmmaker, who I'll get into in a second, is very good at managing their image. The Wikipedia was clearly written by them. Clearly. Like...
So, folks, we've got ourselves a new noise that we'll be dealing with today. Apparently, the apartment next door is under construction. So
they're building or taking down a wall. I'm not quite sure what's happening. Maybe they're putting in a new sink,
I
new
hope they're
kitchen.
not taking down the wall, because that wall is attached to my apartment.
Oh, hey, you know what?
well, you'll be the first to notice if they
You're going to
do.
become a lot more social. Speaking of the Wikipedia, it's really great because if you go to the Wikipedia for The Objective, years, 2008. Just make sure you get to the right one. It says at the top, in like Wikipedia sort of warning, this plot summary may be too long or excessively detailed. Please help improve by removing unnecessary details and make it more precise. Wikipedia thinks it's not good. Anyway, so the director of this film is Daniel Myrick. Now, you guys might remember him as the director of a little film called Blair Witch Project. So this is one of his follow-up projects. I didn't look this up until after watching it. So while I was watching the film, I assumed this must have been the exact next film that he made right after Blair Witch, because it feels like a filmmaker who thought they understood how to make a movie after making Blair Witch, and it turns out when trying to make a real movie couldn't. But it turns out he actually made, besides the 2 Blair Witch short BS projects that he did around that time, he actually did 3 other feature films before this one.
Really?
Yeah. The Strand, Believers, and Solstice. I apologize if I got those wrong. My handwriting is real bad. Written by Daniel Myrick, as well as a guy named Mark A. Patton, who wrote this and, it's The Strand.
You're saying Patton didn't write a good war movie? That's so sad.
It's real sad. There was one other guy credited for the writing, which is Wesley Patton. So it must be a brother of Mark Patton, who only did this. So great experienced writers on board, clearly. The stars of this film, and this is very telling as well. So it stars, the lead is Jonas Ball, who's been in 18 things. His biggest picture is something called Walnuts, the Movie, which he acted and produced in. He did a little bit of VO work that looked okay, kind of credible. He did this, and then he's done 12 pictures since. This man, oh my God. It's like watching a store brand generic mop act.
Wow.
This is the only way I can describe it. That he is so badly cast that anybody else I'm about to mention, anybody, would have been a better lead. This guy is uncomfortably bland to watch. Like, I just wanted to punch him in his face if I could remember who he was in a crowd.
Don't hold back. That's how I really feel about this guy.
Man. Okay. So another actor in this, Matthew Anderson, played Chief Warrant Officer Wally. He's a stunt actor who's been in 159 things, including doing stunts on Captain America, Venom, Fast and Furious. This guy's great. This guy could have been the lead. Also, there's John Huertas, who did 76 different things, including This Is Us, 66 episodes where he played Miguel, and Castle, he did 173 episodes playing a guy named Javier. He could have been the lead.
Yeah, he'd probably be a good lead.
He'd be great. He was a good actor.
I enjoyed Castle. He was pretty good.
Michael C. Williams, who sounds like a famous person, but he's not. He's done 16 films. None of them were big films. He would have been better. Sam Hunter, who has been a PA on 15 films, was acting in this. He's only acted in this and 2 short films, of which I am sure they said, hey, PA, we need another body in this film. I think that's how they got him. He would have been a better lead, for sure. And then Jeff Pruitt, who plays another one of the military guys, he has done stunts in 9 things, including being the stunt double for Vin Diesel in Fast and the Furious 5, and Beastmaster, he was in 44 episodes of.
Would you like Kelly to just take over and start talking about it?
No.
I'm good.
No. I think it's important. Like I said, I think it's important to discuss this. There's a couple other people mixed in here, but again, like really none of them are known. However, there is one person who is a standout who's only done 4 films. He played their guide, Middle Eastern guide named Abdul. The actor is Kems Edine Zenor. He was really good. So, and he's had so few roles. So if anyone wants to cast somebody who doesn't suck, he was pretty good. He made parts of this watchable. So the plot. A military special ops team led by a CIA specialist, Benjamin Keynes, aka Mop Boy, travels deep into hostile Afghanistan terrain in search of a giant energy field. Now, no one on the team is aware. It's kind of an undercover, only the people who need to know, which is literally just the CIA guy. So they're just kind of sort of on an escort mission. They know that they're there. They know that they're supposed to protect things. They know it's hostile, but they don't really know what's up. However, we learn from a beautifully told voiceover at the start, middle, and end of this film. This guy just narrates the whole damn thing. That the CIA guy describes this energy field, and that the CIA and the government is worried.
Was this your new favorite actor narrating it?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Beautiful
Bonus
work. So good. The more, the better of this man. The CIA is worried that perhaps Afghanistan has developed or managed to purchase nukes after 9/11. So this is kind of a response to 9/11 film. Instead, what they find is something closer to the Bermuda Triangle. They get a guide to help them go through this sort of strange valley on the way to trying to find this energy spot, and a lot of strange things start to happen. So first of all, they lose their GPS. So luckily they've got the guide, because there would be no other way to get where they need to go. They're trying to keep in contact, and at one point they try to call in helicopters, and they can't get a hold of anybody. There's also hovering, fast-moving lights that they thought were some headlights driving towards them in the night, but then they just veer off and run away into the sky. Strange. There's a dead soldier at one point. This is going to start to sound a little familiar. There's a dead soldier at one point. Pretty, surprise, surprise. A lot of people die. Who ends up, they kind of put him somewhere safe before they go to bed. And when they wake up the next day, he's gutted and his guts are everywhere. So that's a little weird. They get some canteens filled with water, and when they go to drink, it's actually sand. At one point, a guy looks through some binoculars at another kind of seer or elder that they find living in the mountains, and he's talking to himself. And he looks. One of the soldiers looks through a pair of high-tech binoculars and sees him talking to a number of spirits or something. He thinks it's dudes, and they're holding swords, and they're like strange shadowy figures, and just starts shooting down because the guys look at him, start running. And so he just pulls out his gun, just starts shooting everything, ends up murdering the nice guide dude. There's rudimentary triangle structures out in the area. And of course the land, the guide says, I don't know where we are now. The land has changed shape. I'm not sure what this is, but we're not in the place that we thought. If this sounds a bit like Blair Witch, it sure feels a lot like Blair Witch. It starts off very much ripping off Apocalypse Now, like with the voiceover and the kind of like, I'm being sent into this place and this is what we're up to. And there's even the helicopters overhead kind of shot, but obviously not nearly as cool. Nowhere near as cool. No. But you get the idea. He's like, yeah, this is what a war movie would have in it. And that's a lot of what it feels like. I mean, the premise actually sounds kind of neat. And all of this stuff I mentioned is not a spoiler because it's all in the trailer. All of these things I just mentioned in the trailer. Every supernatural thing that happens in this movie is in the trailer.
Damn.
Yeah. So the trailer, don't go looking for this film based off of that. It feels very much like it's written by somebody who thinks they get military people and thinks they're kind of cool and just like wrote off the cuff of like memory because it feels so wrong. Like one of the actors is Australian. I was like, why is this Australian guy in the US military? What is going on? Strange occurrences happen. You end up with only the CIA guy left. He finds this sort of weird oasis in the middle of this odd energy field, passes out and thinks he sees either aliens or a god, or maybe it's a different village elder they were looking for. It touches his forehead and Sorry if you don't want to know the ending of this.
I'm out of here.
A bunch of light shows up, and he wakes up in a hospital bed surrounded by military dudes, and he's floating above the bed. Whoa! Crazy. If it wasn't so bad. The things I liked about this movie.
Short.
Concept is cool. I do like the concept of it. Weird triangle, alien, strange things in the desert, and a bunch of military guys trying to work through it, work it out. It's fascinating. There's some creepy moments with like the elder guy in the desert talking to those spirits. Looks really freaky. It does have a nice, not jump scare, but like a freaky, like, oh, what is that? The Abdul guy, like I said, good actor. Did not suck. And there's a couple of legends and myths they sort of talk about throughout this film that are really just fun campfire stories. So those are good. The things I don't like. It's a ripoff of the movie that the other guy wrote. It's the voiceover throughout is terrible. All it does is tell you what's going on because there would be no other way of knowing. The lead actor can just stop and find a new career, please. The end credits suddenly cut to this woman talking, and it's the CIA guy's wife. She's like talking and doing like an expose with like a sort of news anchor talking about how her husband's disappeared and she doesn't know what happened to him. And it's one of the worst actresses I've ever seen in my life. And it is just horrible. I mean, I was like, the CIA would not let that woman talk. She would have signed something just marrying him. Like, what? What is this? It's like they just had footage they needed to use. It's just horrible. The big secret, like I said, everything's told in the trailer. There's nothing to discover in here. And overall, the worst part of this whole thing is the directing. There's bad acting throughout. The shots are really poor. The pacing is really poor. The sense of the Afghanistan people are actually Afghani does not feel right. The military being military people does not feel right. The hostiles being hostiles does not feel right. Nothing. I mean, the aliens feel like a weird thing, so I guess they kind of got a weird thing right. But it's exactly the triangles with rudimentary. It's exactly like Blair Witch. So I feel like it's important that you guys know that you shouldn't check this out. LA Times says this is the screenwriter's idea of servicemen, but not the real thing. Hollywood Reporter, basically Blair Witch with in Afghanistan. LA Weekly plays like a disastrous sci-fi channel cast off. My final thoughts. Eduardo Sanchez, co-maker of Blair Witch, was clearly the talent, as he went on to do a VHS too. He did 15 episodes of Supernatural and a number of episodes of Lucifer that he directed. He's got a career. Good job, sir. You actually know what you're doing. You've actually learned from, I don't know, trying to do it for real. And the only reason you should ever watch this film is if you have never seen the Blair Witch Project. Because then it might be interesting.
I could say, Will, the guy who liked your rant last time, is going to enjoy this episode.
I would say, yeah, she really took that to heart.
If House had turned up, I would have.
But, you know, if you make a movie that nets you, I think they made like almost $30 or $40 million each.
Right. Well, you might think you there's some genius in there.
You don't have to try to find somebody to give you money to make a movie. You just pay for your own, and
that's true.
That's not always a good idea.
And that's what it does feel like. That it feels very self-manicured. Everything about it feels like this guy just had a pet project. He thought military was cool. He'd always wanted to make a dumb I'm so exasperated. A dumb military film, and he finally gave himself the chance. Mm-hmm. I mean, that would make sense if he self-funded. It's so bad, you guys. So don't be tricked like I was.
That's right. So if you want to be depressed, watch mine. If you want to be pissed off, watch Vanessa's.
All right.
How about you,
Kelly?
Do you have one that people will be happy to watch?
Well, I hope so. I like my film.
Oh, good.
I chose The Devil's Rock from 2011.
You're safe now. I can take you from here.
Jesus Christ.
We leave honest, John.
You are indeed a long way from her. You may not believe this, but you and I are in the same boat.
Who was that woman out there?
I know you're listening.
If only you knew the truth of that. One does not summon demons without the means to defend oneself against them.
I can be this way for you always.
I curse thee into the depths of the bottomless pit, there to remain until the day of wrath.
What were you expecting, my love? The devil?
This looked so cool.
It's a cool movie, and it's streaming on Netflix. So.
I came across this one and looked at it as well, but kind of just forgot about it.
I pretty much knew this was what I was going to pick when you mentioned this, because this was just something I accidentally watched several years ago, and I thought, this is a really neat little horror flick. I could find no budget information, and the box office was only about $21,000. Rotten Tomatoes, the critics have it at 56%, the audience at 36%, which seems very unfair to me. This is a New Zealand film. It's full of a bunch of Kiwis. The director is Paul Campion, who's done a bunch of shorts, including Eel Girl. Do you remember that one?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
But as a visual effects guy, he has 41 credits, including the Lord of the Rings trilogy, 30 Days of Night, Kingsman, Captain America: Civil War.
A New Zealander that worked on Lord of the Rings.
Shocking.
And it was written by Paul Campion and Paul Finch. Paul Finch really has nothing to talk about. It stars Craig Hall, who is a Kiwi, and he has done a ton of film and television, mostly New Zealand television. But he was also in King Kong. He was in The Hobbit, and he was in 30 Days of Night. It also stars Matthew Sunderland, who's also done a ton of stuff, but mostly he would be known from something like The Luminaries or the TV series Wanted or The Lost City of Z. And Gina Varela, who was she was a squad Red Ranger in Power Rangers SPD.
Awesome.
So, the movie starts off with a shot of a group of commandos in a tiny inflatable raft. And so on June 5th, 1944, in the early morning hours before the opening of the invasion on D-Day, this little commando team lands on one of the Channel Islands, which are occupied by the German army. And their mission is to sabotage installations there to create a distraction from the actual landings on Normandy.
Wow.
When they get there, though, they're a bit confused by the lack of German patrols on the island. And then they hear these strange wailing sounds coming from the installation that they are supposed to be going to take care of. It sounds like a woman who's screaming. So they place their explosives, but because these are the good guys, they say, we got to go and rescue whoever that is. We can't allow this to go on. And this is where their mission goes south. They go inside, they sneak inside, and they realize, why are we sneaking? There's a ton of German soldiers in here, and they've all been ripped to shreds.
Oh, my.
Yes, and they find what appears to be a book of magical spells.
Oh, no.
Through a sequence of bizarre events, most of the commandos are all killed, and we are left with one commando who happens to be a New Zealand commando, and one SS Nazi colonel who is there to kind of tell him what has happened this whole time. And it turns out that when the soldiers were stationed there, on the island itself, they found this satanic book. And because they're Nazis, they decided to do shit with it. And they managed to...
this will give us the advantage.
Yes, they managed to conjure up a demon.
There you go. Oops.
Now, our our good guy soldier is kind of dubious that that's what they have done, but the SS officer says, well, let me show you. And so he takes him deeper into the installation where there is a woman chained to the floor of this one room. And to our allied soldier, it appears that it's his wife who's supposed to be waiting for him at home. So he's like, what the fuck's going on here? And he goes to try and help her, but the Nazi grabs him and says, not so fast, and pulls out his gun, shoots his wife in the head. And this drives him to attack the Nazi, as you might suggest, or you might expect. But as he's doing this, the woman sits up from the floor and starts talking to him very creepily and saying, she knows his name and everything. And she's, please help me, get me out of here. And he kind of realizes, oh, shit, this is not my wife. And whatever this is just looks like my wife. But it's interesting because the Nazi soldier says, who does that look like to you? Because to me, it looks like something else. So any person that looks at it sees...
That's cool.
What either a woman they desire or whatever they want, So the German soldier says, look, we need to send this back. And the New Zealand soldier agrees that this is probably a bad thing to let loose on the earth. And so the rest of the film is them kind of working together to undo this spell that brought him back. But of course, that the Nazi is going to betray him. Or try to betray him. But our soldier, our soldier is very smart, and that does not go as well as the Nazi had planned. But it's really a neat little contained movie of these two soldiers, now trying to figure out what they've done and how they can undo it.
Nice.
It's a really decent little low-budget film. Basically, 2 actors, minimal sets, and it's exactly what you want to do if you're making your first feature indie film. So I got some cool little notes on this. Paul Campion, who is the director, he actually remortgaged his house in New Zealand to finance the film.
Wow.
It was originally just going to be made with his money until the New Zealand Film Commission backed the film and provided additional funding after they saw what he had done. So that's super cool. The tunnels and the gun pit scenes were filmed at Wrights Hill Fortress in Wellington, which is a real semi-restored World War II bunker. And then the final little bit of trivia I thought Eric would like best. The director of Black Sheep, Jonathan King, plays a role as a German suicide slumped in one of the tunnels. So I thought that was just a neat little thing. Not a lot to really talk about. There's some cool effects in it, as you might expect from a guy who does all that kind of stuff for Weta and all that.
Yeah.
The acting is really solid. The storyline is very basic. It kind of has to be because of, I don't know. I could find no budget on this, but it only made $21,000. It looks really good for what you see. I mean, they were really smart. He's like, I'm making a period piece, and it all takes place inside a room. So all that has to be done are the uniforms have to be right, and everybody kind of has to, everybody has to be a good, good actor. Sorry.
See, it wasn't the noise, it's where your hands were when you made that noise.
Oh.
So I'm kind of like, what?
No.
Sorry.
Let me just whip this out.
No.
It's a really solid little indie film, and the 36% from the audience, I can only imagine comes because they wanted it to be bigger or something like that. They're not taking into account that this guy obviously looked around at what was available to him and made a really solid little movie using that stuff. Not trying, the effects never look bad, like he reached too far or anything like that. So I was really, really surprised with this when I first saw it, and then on rewatch it, I was like, you know what? I was right. This is a good little movie, and it's right there on Netflix. It's fun. It's certainly a good Halloween type film.
That sounds awesome. Cool, yeah. Man, Wish I watched that.
I think you wish you watched like a Tide commercial or something.
You know, the
You're not
Nazi
wrong.
soldier in this, he would have made a good leading man.
What? Yes, absolutely. Get that guy's number.
The director of Black Sheep, who is just playing a slumped over Nazi in this, he would have made a good leading man for your film.
A 3-year-old randomly chosen out of a classroom and led to a microphone would have done a better job in this film.
I poop my pants.
Ooh, scary.
Cut and print.
Done and done. Oof, that was realistic.
Okay.
Oh my.
Good topic, Eric. I think that means it's your pick for next episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you guys have gone through a couple of picks before I showed up. I think you did like 40 something episodes before I came along. So I might make you do some stuff you might have already done.
Sure.
Good.
But I didn't get to do.
None of those episodes count now.
Yay! Starting from scratch. So since we're in October and it kind of feels like the right mood, I would love for us to approach witches.
Witches.
Nice.
I know. I don't want to commit.
Boy,
It's like a witch horse or something. Started off good, but whinnied at the end there.
Really killed it. I felt bad when I opened my mouth.
I like this topic, and I can't wait to hear what movie you hate.
I'm going to try really hard, really hard to find one I don't hate and actually bring it. I'm sure I'll find something.
Fantastic. Okay.
Nice.
Well, then that brings us to the end of the episode. Thanks, as usual, to all the people who are constantly cheering us on. Really appreciate all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And, we had talked about the Amazon portal a couple weeks back, and now that's no longer a thing.
Yes, so get out there and get more people to like us and get up our Twitter and Facebook likes and Instagram follows because we didn't make the cut.
Oh, bummer.
We're close.
Too bad. I made us some money just with my weird sex toys and gun paraphernalia. So.
The NRA has always been on your side. What can I say?
All right, guys, we will be back in 1 week, and we are talking witches.
See you.
Our show is recorded somewhere high above Naval Station Everett at the nexus of all realities and is engineered and produced by Eric Margaret. Our theme music is Strange Aeons Part 1 by the band Nightshade and is used with permission. Find Strange Aeons Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and wherever fine podcasts are found.